Okay.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. This is July 9th, 2020, and I would like to call to order the July meeting of the Orange County Industrial Development Agency. And first order of business is the roll call, so I'll start with that. So Mr. Diana?
Here.
Mr. DeSalvo?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Brescia?
Here.
Okay. Mr. Gatos and Mr. Scrabbice are not here. Mr. McCary?
Here.
Okay, and our staff members, Lori Biasuso, Vinnie Cozzolino, Melanie Schouten, Kevin Dowd, Russ Gonzel, our attorney, Russ and Kevin are our attorneys, and Ed J, because I'm not going to pronounce your name, Chief Financial Officer. Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and the first one of those is the June 11th board meeting minutes, which I did have a comment about one of those. In the board minute under the Accelerator Report, in the last paragraph, we were talking about the $1.5 million that we invested with, with the Warwick LDC, and that, I had met with Mr. Sweeten, and, and it says he felt confident that the state would support it. I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he told me that the Town of Warwick Board actually approved that the town itself would repay if they didn't get the money from the state.
That's correct.
All right, so I think the minutes should reflect that.
Sure.
That the town had a meeting, the Warwick Town Board.
Okay.
It's a matter.
If it was the board or the LDC board, but I think it was the town. Yeah.
It was the town board because, it's a matter of public record in their records, but I think it should be in ours too. So I'd like to make that change. Anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as to be amended.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, good. The next up is the June 11th Audit Committee meeting minutes, which looked okay to me, but I was not there. So Jim, are you satisfied with the minutes?
Completely.
Okay, good. So are there any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the Audit Committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. So next up is financial reports and our requests for payments. And I think this is probably where, are we gonna talk about our Joel?
Yes.
Okay, hi Joel. So we asked Joel to join us even though he's no longer our CFO, because we're gonna virtually give him a plaque in our recognition and of the service he's given to us over the past 13 years. Joel came to the IDA during his tenure as the Commissioner of Finance with the county when Mr. Diana was the county exec, first on a part-time basis, and then when he retired, he joined us full-time and really helped transition the IDA to 21st century financial accounting, and really helped us with the compliance and everything else. So I would like to personally thank you for your contribution, Joel. It was always very helpful, and your experience was very important, and hope you enjoy the rest of your retirement. And I guess somebody's going to virtually give you a plaque in commemoration.
It's not a memory.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. We will send it to you. Yes.
Well, you could pass it to me and I'll pretend I'm receiving.
Okay, so again, thank you very much.
I appreciate that. First, I want to thank Ed, Diana, for first giving me the opportunity to work with the IDA 13 years ago, and it was a great opportunity. Also, I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with all the past and present board members and staff. It's really been It's very interesting. I didn't know anything about the IDA before Ed got me involved in it, and it's been a terrific learning process about another segment of government. And lastly, I just want to wish everyone the best of luck and good health with everything in business and in your personal lives. And I just appreciate everyone's support.
Okay, thank you very much,
All
Joel.
right.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah,
Joel. Thank you.
Joel, I made a little plaque for you, buddy. There it is. Okay, there's your virtual plaque. Okay.
And it's got money on it too, Joel.
Yeah, thanks for all your service, buddy. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
If you get money out of him, you're doing
Your
good.
creativity, Jim. Okay, so then we'll move on to the financial reports and requests for payment. So Ed, if you could walk us through that. You got to unmute yourself, Ed. You got to unmute yourself.
He's getting there.
Okay. Top right.
Yeah, it's okay. Now I had a direct reminder. I'm trying to do 2 screens at once here. Not working out that well. The first chart is the bank accounts and the money markets. The total is $6.6 million at the end of June. Next chart is the income and expense for the IDA. See for the month of June, just the revenue, the interest earnings of 367, and basically the normal appears to be the standard monthly expenses of $24,000. And you see everything definitely below budget on the spending part. Third chart is the Orange County Accelerator. For the month, we had rent of almost $8,000, and down the way there, the expenses were $305,000. Again, this is I'll make note that some of this is we did take out some of the again, cash. It's still primarily there's no some items may be or will become capitalized when we'll start working on that category. And then I guess going right to the final chart there about the funds received. Nothing came in to the IDA, and there's 5 checks requesting payment for, and they're all monthly, I believe the standard monthly retainers or services we've been buying for the year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay, I just want to mention that last month when Ed started, we were talking about the cash reporting, and I had asked him to work on presenting a balance sheet, and they're working on that. I mean, it's going to require some adjustments, and to his point about the capitalization. So he's well along in getting that. So this way, on a going forward basis, the financial reports will be GAAP-based. It's generally accepted accounting principles, and they'll look more like the financial statements that we get from the accountants. So hopefully by August, we'll start that off, and and really, and one of the things that is going to be beneficial is for us is because we really haven't given any value to the assets that are included in the accelerator. So some of the funds that we spent in the build outs we did. So I think it just more appropriately represent the financial condition of the IDA. So we talked about that. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
One thing I should back, one other item that came up during last meeting was about regarding the municipal banks that could accept municipal deposits. So I think Joel did some research there. Basically, banks that cannot take municipal deposits are credit unions, savings and loans, and federal saving associations. He did mention that there's legislation in the state to expand to include credit unions and savings, but it appeared that that legislation hasn't moved since January. So that's just an update to the list of banks.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that, because what we were trying to do is get more local banks the savings banks on our list. So if they're legally not able to, we can't add them. So I appreciate that effort. Okay, so any other questions or comments from anybody? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial reports and requests for payments as presented.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. New and unfinished business, the chairman's report. I just wanted to say, just noting my sadness in the passing of our former chairman, Bob Armistead, who unfortunately went much sooner than he should have. He served the IDA very, very well. He was definitely a mentor to me, and he'll be sadly missed. So that's all I have to report. So then we'll move on to the CEO report.
Marianne,
Yeah,
one question. I noticed the other day in the paper that Dave McFarland passed away.
yes,
That too.
And
Oh,
Dave
right.
Dave is a former chairman
right.
as
Yeah,
well
he was.
of the IDA and a member. So I just want to bring that up.
Yeah. No, thanks. That's before my tenure.
Lisa?
So,
Yeah, right. I'm just saying, but
I'm
Yeah.
behind the 8 ball today, so
both great guys that served the IDA really well, and we're going to miss them. They're gone too soon. So thanks.
yeah, I just noticed that. So, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think wake is today. Okay,
Yep.
so CEO, are you ready for us?
I am.
Okay.
So first and foremost, under my report, we have an adoption of the mission statement. So just for everyone's enjoyment, I'm going to read it for you. It's something that we haven't adopted in the last probably, let's see, I've been here since 2011. So I don't remember having adopted it since that point, but it hasn't changed. It's just that we're going to re-adopt it as a formality. So the mission of the Orange County Industrial Development Agency is to promote economic growth through a program of incentives-based allocations that assist in the construction, equipping, and maintenance of specific types of projects and facilities. The IDA works to advance the health, prosperity, and economic welfare of our county citizens by retaining and creating jobs and attracting new businesses. So again, we're doing this as a measure of the Paris compliance efforts. So if someone would like to make a motion to adopt it or revise it if so necessary.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
as kind of the reason that came up is because staff attended a few weeks ago the New York State EDC IDA Academy, which is, something that's it was virtual, and it was a training about compliance legislation. There was also, though, a board member training at that meeting, which John McCary attended. As a reminder, every board member is required to complete the Public Authorities Accountability Act training. Everybody is up to date on our board now, but as a refresher, it's always good to go through them. But John McCary, being a new member, was attending that. I don't know, John, if you had anything that you wanted. Did you have any takeaways from it that you wanted to share with the class, or anything you wanted to say?
I think a good reference would be a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, which I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago, for our board members to review, as a quick reference material if issues or concerns come up.
Yeah. Well, we've actually reached out and we're waiting for that. So hopefully it's something that they'll share with us. We have contacted the office to get a copy of that, as well as a copy of the video of that training. So in addition to the PowerPoint, some of the comments that Jeff made were interesting and helpful. So we have reached out for that, and we'll share that with everybody. On that note, one of the things that was nice for us was that we had a lot of discussion about the prevailing wage legislation, the grants and loans bills. And I felt very fortunate, even though our entire staff was there, and Vinny's staff was there as well, because we have a lot of people who are participating in the IDA at this point in time. But one of the most important things to me was that we all were very well versed in most of these bills already. I think that's a testament to our legal firms that we have, as well as our lobby firms. We've made sure to stay on top of all of the legislation that's coming into our IDA, and making sure that we stay, aware of any potential challenges. So we had that. We also no, let me move on to the next one. As reported last month, so you have in your packet this month the response that we sent to the ABO for their most recent review of 2 of our projects. We haven't heard back from them, so we assume that the matter is closed, but if anything does come of it, we will certainly let you know. Everybody's received an email about a board retreat from Marty, looking to schedule one. Essentially, we want to talk, about some of the things that the IDAs are facing, or that our IDA is facing. But we've also reached out. Once we have a date, we will reach out to Jeff Perlman to see if he will meet with the board at that point and give a little bit of that same sort of talk that he gave to the entire statewide IDAs. Again, because it's all very important. Legislation and regulation around IDAs continue to change on a nearly monthly basis, and it's more important than ever to make sure that we have all of our boxes checked. So we're working on that. Obviously, workload has continued to increase. Businesses are reopening. They're needing assistance now in both their SBA COVID recoveries, but also in operations. So it's been certainly a drain on everybody at the staff, and I don't mean in that in a bad way. It's just there's been a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I think everybody has done great to come to the table in that effect. Melanie, for instance, has been working to set up the program to comply with the state's COVID requirements for the safety safety compliance. So we're a small staff. Every single one of us will have a role to play when the day finally comes that we can all be in the office together. Melanie's preparing us for that with the cooperation of Vinny's partner, Peter Klein. They're putting that together now. We're all meeting today on Zoom, as you know, because the executive order to allow remote meetings was extended through August 5th. That is something else that we'll stay on top of to determine whether or not our August meeting will be in person or via Zoom. One of the challenges we'll have is that if the executive order is lifted and remote meetings are no longer allowed for public bodies like this, we will have an issue with our space. We don't really technically have enough space to social distance, so we'll have to work on how we can mitigate that, but we'll work on that throughout this month and next. As you all know, the transition from Joel to Ed is complete. He is now, I think, warts and all, Ed has joined us and maybe regretting the fact that he's come on board, but he's with us and he's spending a lot of time coming up to speed and very quickly. We're working, Melanie, Vinny, Ed, and I have spent a lot of time meeting to sort of refine some of our practices for some efficiency and greater transparency. Every time we go back to the ABO conversation, it really comes down to being transparent and showing what it is that the IDA does. Everything that we do, I think, is in the best interest of the taxpayer, so we just want to make sure that we have very effective reporting for that. With that being said, our loan program through the OCFC, as everyone knows, was exhausted, but the other IDAs are now starting to initiate loan programs because of the grants and loans bill. A lot of other IDAs, like Dutchess County, for instance, have reached out to us to determine if they have the wherewithal to undertake their own program. They're looking to us for guidance because we were one of the very few IDAs in the state who launched a fully formed a fully formed loan program from nothing to fruition. So it's a lot of other IDAs and LDCs have had longstanding loan programs, and they're able to kind of pivot and use their past experience to deploy in this new day and age. We didn't have that. So it's been nice to be a thought leader in that realm. So I just wanted to congratulate the board for that. Again, on the COVID recovery, we held our 11th webinar for COVID recovery back on June 25th. We had a rep from the Small Business Development Center. We took a few weeks off, but we're going to start again next week with the Federal Reserve Main Street Lending Program. Currently, we're familiarizing ourselves with the program because obviously if we're going to walk our businesses through this, we have to make sure that we're familiar with it. And then also selecting our expert to present. One of the things that we take a lot of pride in is that our webinars are not just webinars for speaking at you like I'm doing right now, but really far more interactive and certainly something that we've taken every business by the hand. So we have to have an expert who is willing to commit the time, not only to answer the questions that are very specific to each business, but also take the time to follow up with them after the webinar to answer any questions that may come up during their reporting. So that's been very successful. So we just are choosing our partners carefully. One of the last two things, well, one of the actions at last month's meeting was that we adjusted the pilots for Hampton Park, and Merlin. That is still underway. The document is still in process, but we did send out letters to the jurisdiction notifying them of the change, so it won't be a surprise. Just wanted the board to know that we were cutting it close. We didn't get the requests from those projects until a little late. So in order for us to make sure that no jurisdiction was surprised by the adjustment in the pilot, we sent out a letter that Kevin prepared to make sure that they were anticipating the adjustment. But then lastly, for the rest of the year, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the things that we're expecting. At the moment, it looks like we're going to have all of our meetings this year with the potential exception of November or December. I know sometimes we take a month off in the summer, but we're very busy lately. So it looks like we'll have everything, all of our meetings for the year. We'll be following the news and information on COVID spikes and react accordingly, which may mean these future Zoom meetings, but essentially, we're anticipating working remotely for the foreseeable future until we can figure out what the next best practice will be. As a reminder, we've been through this in terms of, the post 2008 financial crisis and economic downturn. Scales tend to tip for us in those situations. The accelerator will likely be busier than the IDA for a little while. Economic downturns tend to result in entrepreneurs leading the path, and they have time now maybe to follow a dream of their own business. So our program is more important than ever. Everything that we're doing to invest in the accelerator and the accelerator without walls, keeping the businesses that we have here will be very, very important. So we do anticipate that the workflow will continue to either increase or at least level off at a pretty high point. And then lastly, potentially, depending on the next report and the action thereafter, the only thing that we can not the only thing that we can look forward to, but something that we can look forward to for this year is a potential grand opening for a Highland Falls Accelerator, which I know the Accelerator Committee is very excited about, and we as staff are very, very excited about to see something really great happen in Highland Falls. So unless you have any questions for me, that's all I have to report this month.
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions?
No.
I noticed that Mike Gatos is here now. Hello, Mr. Gatos.
Hi, Mr. Gatos.
I'm back. Sorry, I had a water leak at 10 too.
Oh, geez.
All good.
Okay, next up, the Accelerator Report. Ed?
Yep. We had our meeting today, and we spent most of the time discussing the Highland Falls Accelerator. It's going to be the recommendation of the committee to lease the entire building at the old Key Bank building in Highland Falls. We have about 7 businesses that are interested in moving in pretty quickly, and that's going to be about 6,000, I believe, square feet of that building. We have the Association of Graduates from West Point that are interested in maybe 4,000 square feet of that building. So we're discussing leasing with them as well. And so that's good news for Highland Falls. I spoke with the mayor of the village, Joe D'Onofrio, this morning. He gave me a call personally to ask for encouragement and for backing of that project. He thinks it's going to be very worthwhile to the village of Highland Falls. They're very close working with West Point on this initiative right now as well. So I think that's a very important aspect of this whole concept, to work very closely with West Point as well. I think that can help in the future as well, with the village and also with the county. So I think it's a good initiative. Mr. McCary brought up an idea that we would get a 2-year out of this lease. It's going to be for a 5-year lease, but after 2 years, if we feel we have to change it or come out of that lease, we will be able to do that within 6 months. So it's really a 2.5-year lease with like an option probably on the other 2.5 years. So I think that's something that's good, because if it's not working out in the future the way we think it will work out, then we have the ability to get out of that lease. So I think that's a very good negotiation that we had with the owner of the building, or the potential owner of that building. Also, the lease is now $15 all in on that lease. So that's everything but utilities. Utilities would be extra. And our plan is to charge the occupants of the building $8 a square foot. So we would be responsible for the additional $12 roughly a square foot for that building. So I think overall, it's a very good lease. I think it's going to be good for the area. And I think this field is going to explode. IA is really going to take off. So we'll be on the forefront of that. So I think it's a good move for us to get into this full blast here with working with West Point as well.
Yeah, and I would like to thank you, Ed. I would like to add that the companies that have already agreed to come in, the 7 or so companies, where they're the change in the industry of medicine, because of telemedicine and a lot of virtual reality and Zoom type things. I mean, a lot of these companies are really well positioned to ramp up for the changes in this industry, which is going to be really blown up. And the other thing is they're all very high paying jobs. So I think it's a really great opportunity for us. And I wholeheartedly support us leasing the whole building.
Vinny, do you have anything to add, Vinny?
Nothing to the AI, Ed. Did you just want to say something about the AWOW company that came in, just in general?
Oh, yeah, we had an AWOW company come in. The owner's name, I believe, is Jeffrey, where they were using 4,000 square feet and now have expanded an additional 9,000 square feet. So they're at roughly 15,000 square feet. They had 15 employees. Now they're at 35 employees and doing some great things with masks and shields that are very needed in today's economy and in today's world that we're going to be left with for many, many years going into the future. So that was a good story about a company that we help, Company Without Walls, AWOW, and really expanded, much more space, many more employees, and it seemed to work out very well. So Vinny, I want to commend you and the staff for that initiative and for really helping that company out. And we're going to bring other companies in at other meetings that we're helping now through the AWOW program as well.
Mary Ellen, if you don't mind, I'm just as a question, I don't know if this is an appropriate point to, obviously Eddie has mentioned that the Accelerator Committee recommended for approval of the lease. I don't know if this is an appropriate point to have the board authorize us to move forward with executing that lease, provided it meets the terms that we discussed.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank, I know Eddie was involved with it down there, and John McCary and Lori and Vinny, and I'm just happy that we're doing something for Highland Falls, because it always, now that Jim's on the IDA, we know the landscape a little better because he's very familiar with it. But for years we've been trying to do something down in that community, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to do that. And I think it's going to tremendously help out the town of Highlands and the village of Highland Falls. So I commend our whole team.
Agreed. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, so I think you're good. Oh, no, did we take a vote?
No. Not yet, no.
No, all right. So any other further comments? Bless you, John. Any other further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, now you're good. Okay, and then anything else for the accelerator, Eddie, or that's it?
No, I think that's good. Vinny, do you have anything, or Lori, to add?
Perfect, Ed. No.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, so then next up is the board committee reports, and we have a report from the governance committee. And I think that's you again, Ed, right?
Yes. Yes, we met today, and we had really only one subject that we discussed a little bit was the HVADC. That's the IDA company that works with us. And we're going to try to bring in each company again that we deal with and bring up a little report about those companies. And Vinny, maybe you want to expand a little bit about that?
So HVADC mostly helps agriculture when it comes to Orange County. And we mostly work with through Paul Riskevich and the county legislators, Economic Development Committee to give assignments to HVADC. What we want to do is, and I'm glad Steve's on, we want to partner up with Paul and really get a list of things that we would ask HVADC to deliver to us so we could hold them accountable to whatever funding we give them.
And the other thing we discussed as well was that it's really a conglomerate of other counties that also put money in to this project. And I would like to know what each county puts in, the amount. We give 25,000, we do it through our IDA. Other counties do it through the county government side of it. And I also want to find out how much each county is putting in to that pot. I want to make sure that all the counties are putting in 25,000 because I think that's fair. If we're putting in 25, I want to make sure the other counties are doing the same and not putting in 10,000 versus 25. And if they are, I'd like to know why. So I think we're going to get that report as well. And is the funding out of IDA funds or is it out of county funding? So just see what the landscape is on all the counties. Okay. The other thing we discussed very briefly, because we're going to have a further discussion when it gets to the Orange County Funding Corporation. And we did have a topic of a citizens group coming in about the Goshen Cemetery. I think you've noticed it in the local newspaper about an abandoned cemetery. They wanted $1,200. The committee voted for that. We'll discuss it more in the funding corp because that's where that funding
that's a funding corp item.
will be coming out of there. So when we get there, we'll have a little more discussion about it.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to other board business, and we have the NDC/Monroe presentation. Can you introduce this for us, Lori?
Got it. So we have with us today Supervisor Cardone, who has a potential development in Monroe, and he brought with him a team of people to present that plan of something that's potentially coming down the pike for them. So Tony, I would turn it over to you and your team. But you unfortunately are muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Tony, you're muted.
He doesn't look like he's muted. I think his microphone isn't working.
Yeah. Hold on.
Oh, Tony, did you call in one of the phone numbers below or one of those?
Yeah, I think so.
You're on the phone? Tony, there's two numbers on the bottom, 646 and 845. It's muted.
Yeah, 769. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the way Tony does it on the county calls with the county exec. So it's a little different than what we do.
All right, I'm going to unmute both of these.
Can you? I'm unmuted now, it sounds like.
There you
Okay.
go.
Loud and clear now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and board members. We appreciate the opportunity to state our case here today. This is a project that we feel is very beneficial to all parties in the town of Monroe, whether it's the school district, the residents, the town itself, as well as, local businesses. I'm going to turn everything over to Brian Noonan from NDC. I believe he is on Zoom as well. With that said, and no further ado, Ryan, go ahead. I know also Councilman Mike McGinn is on the call as well.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much for giving us this time today, Madam Chair, staff members, and members of the board. We have had the pleasure of speaking with subsets of this group now, I think 3 times over the past couple of months. And so it's given us an opportunity to get to know you as an organization a little bit. I thought maybe I'd just give you 2 minutes of who NDC is and then sort of launch into the project. NDC is a not-for-profit economic development consulting firm based in New York. We have about 50 plus years of activity in the economic development field. We're actually the oldest economic development consultancy doing the work that we do in the country. And one of our primary areas of activity is actually working with IDAs on pilot shaping to ensure, I guess, the two things that I heard from the reading of your mission statement that this project is really about, and that is helping to move projects forward that have significant economic and community benefit, but yet right-sizing the level of assistance to make a project happen so that there's not undue enrichment for the developers and investors. We do dozens of these analyses each year, and we do an awful lot of them in and around the New York area. We've been working with the town of Monroe through a project which is before you today for more than 2 years now. And I guess I'd like to summarize where we are in terms of why we are here before you today, to say that over that period of time, and we have managed as a team led by the supervisor and council member for sure, to resolve a very difficult community issue in a manner that is acceptable to the parties involved, which will finally put to bed some very difficult litigation. And I'll let the supervisor provide details if any of you have questions about the specific background on that. But what we have all been able to accomplish is a negotiated process of transferring approximately 256 acres of developable land from a group of developers through the sale process, which we're involved with presently, to a third-party development entity that we will be seeking proposals from through an RFQ process that will launch at the end of this month. So we're very excited. We've been working on the development of this RFQ now for about a year, actually a little bit more. And we're about ready to launch it to a group of high-quality developers that NDC has assembled in and around the New York area and really in the eastern United States. Top quality firms that do work that will produce, we believe, a very high-quality product for the town of Monroe. And the town has taken a very proactive position in moving this project and this resolution forward to the extent of actually completing a generic environmental impact statement, which is now final. And in that project, or in that analysis, the environmental consulting team developed a test case that reflected a major part of what is the negotiated resolution with the existing landowners and plaintiffs. And through a process of at the beginning of this, which was really instrumental to bringing the negotiations to a successful conclusion, the town has developed an instrument referred to as a floating zone. And what the floating zone document does is it defines with a very high degree of specificity what can be developed on the 256 acres and where it can be developed. And so there are 7 parcels that comprise the 256 acres. And what has been agreed is that of those 7, 3 would be developed, comprising a total of 91 acres, or roughly 35% of the total land. And then the remaining 4 parcels, or 65%, would be held in perpetuity as a conservation trust, a conservation easement, to enable public recreation on that land, access to hiking, and as well the possibility of developing recreation fields and whatnot, but to really hold a community asset in perpetuity for conservation and recreation purposes. And on the other 91 acres, there is a conceptual development plan to develop approximately 491 residential units, of which 356 would be rental units, and they span studios to 3-bedroom houses. The DGIS was developed and presented according to that test case of 491 units on the 91 acres. The CCR floating zone describes in great detail the level of density that can be developed within the developable parcels, as well as the building standards and the distribution of units. Now, there is some latitude for interpretation ultimately by the entity who purchases the land and develops the land, but essentially with the rules defined in the CCR, the latitude is quite narrow. So we feel very comfortable in discussing with you the maximum parameters of 491 units, and given the requirements or the expectation of rental units, approximately 356. Well, when we went through the analysis and as part of the negotiated settlement with the plaintiffs, there was a strike price established to complete this transfer, and that strike price is $16 million for the 256 acres. And when you do the analysis of the distribution of units on the 91 acres, according to the limitations within the CCIR and modeled in the DGIS, what you realize is that this project, even with the now somewhat increasing market rates in Monroe due to the COVID process, which is certainly an interesting aspect of this project presently. But when you do the analysis, looking at what is on the rental units expected to be approximately $5,200 in tax per year on the 356 units at full assessment, the project struggles. It does not pencil. And so you end up with a situation where, from our standpoint, representing the town, there is, I guess, a dilemma is the best way to put it. And here's what it is. It isn't just a matter of the town potentially not reaching the $16 million to effectuate the transfer of the land from the plaintiffs to the third-party development group that we're seeking. The real problem is that shrewd developers, looking at the existing taxes on the land and factoring in a sale price of $16 million or higher, we'll see that the project will struggle, and they simply won't bid. And so, rather than to end up in a situation where we have the opportunity to negotiate with the highest quality bidders who would be interested in this project, what we unfortunately anticipate is that developers won't waste the time and resources on a project, putting together the development proposal, which we are requesting in the RFQ, for a project that just doesn't pencil out. And what that means is that, well, there may not be any bids entirely, or you end up with very probably a lesser than desired pool of candidates. And so that really is the issue here, I guess, at stake. Because I want to preface what we're not asking you to do today. What we're not asking you to do is approve a pilot. What we want to do, and what we would like to request authorization, I guess, from the board, is to state in our RFQ that we have had exactly what we have had, which is preliminary discussions with the Orange County IDA. We've explained the project in detail. And then right now, the way that we have it written up in our RFQ is that we would like to be able to state that the IDA has authority to grant pilots. And in one of the areas that it is potentially permissible is residential projects similar to that which is being proposed in Monroe, and that we would extract and quote verbatim the language out of your UTEP for what is the 10-year pilot language and the 15-year pilot language and your table. So there are no calculations, and Lori and Vincent, this is where our and thank you for the guidance and input that you have provided through this discussion. We certainly are not asking you to authorize a specific pilot for our RFQ or on a hypothetical project. We understand that you would need to see an actual project proposed and have that supported in detail. And this is the way that when NDC works with a municipality and an IDA to evaluate a proposal, we're very used to that. And so we understand the concerns that speaking about a pilot, a potential pilot on a hypothetical basis, even defined in a DGIS would not be comfortable. But what we would like to be able to do is simply state that we've had constructive conversations, preliminary conversations with the IDA. The IDA is authorized to grant pilots, possibly in the area of, but to say that there is no obligation from the IDA to grant a pilot on this project, and that a developer would need to come forward once selected with a formal proposal to the IDA in cooperation with the town, supported by NDC. So it would be a process entirely similar to what you're used to in working with a developer. And that we would just like to be able to say that we've had these conversations with you so that there is an understanding that the IDA is aware of this project. I don't think that there is much more that we could ask you at this point with the level of information that we could bring forward. But I guess what I really would like to do is just to tell you how significant the possibility of a pilot is for this project. The possibility to bring in additional bidders, and then ultimately to get to the necessary bid level to complete the transition of this land. And so what I would like to ask you foremost is to, one, to establish a level of collegial relationship and dialogue between you as a body and ourselves as a management team trying to bring this project forward on behalf of the town of Monroe. And then, as I'm sure you would, to have an open mind to a proposal that is fully documented by a very highly reputed development organization that is able to develop the proposal ultimately selected for development on the land. So it's maybe a different request than what you're used to hearing, but it's really just one of letting you know that we're very serious about this very important project for the town of Monroe, and we would like to establish a formal dialogue with you through this meeting today. That concludes my presentation, if you will. I'm happy to answer any questions and also to share with you through your staff the specific section of the RFQ, or the RFQ entirely. It's about a page and a half of material that written material that we're proposing to include in the RFQ.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Just
Thank
for
you.
the rest of the board members, I had, a pretty lengthy conversation with Mr. Cardone about this project. I know that Vinny and Lori have spoken to him, and I thought it would be beneficial for them to, speak to us in a public format about this. And I told Mr. Cardone rather, that I am really not in favor of supporting a project like this. Our IDA has not done housing, even though I believe statutorily we are permitted to do that. And while the town and village people of Monroe and the school district are in support of the program, the rest of the county, I don't think, should be in a position to support this. I'm not so sure that the project is untenable with respect to the numbers. I mean, and that's really the $64 million question. But my own personal opinion is that, real estate development has its own economic factors, and projects find their way based upon the way the numbers flow. And if there's a problem with the tax number, then the municipality, I think, could probably address that themselves, even though they're not an IDA and maybe they're not allowed to do something from a pilot standpoint. They possibly could do something else given the circumstances. And furthermore, I really don't feel comfortable, and I did say this to Mr. Cardone, I don't feel comfortable making some kind of a forward commitment, no matter how nebulous it is. I would certainly defer to council, because I don't think, we can do that. You can certainly say that you made a presentation before us and that we heard what you had to say. And I would encourage my fellow board members to, voice their opinions. But beyond that, I don't feel comfortable making any kind of a commitment. So I'll ask my fellow board members, you got anything to say?
I have a question with, we had a mini meeting too. We're not in the village of Montgomery, we're not unfamiliar with floating zones. Kevin helped craft a couple for senior housing. Kevin actually was the town of Monroe attorney for many years. But with the floating, I like the aspect with the 65% open space. And with that, I didn't ask you before, but is that land considered parkland in lieu of money, or is there also going to be a proposal for money in lieu of parkland to develop that?
There's parkland fees that come into play with it as well, Steve.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Normally I would have taken the tack that Mary Ellen just spoke about, but I'd like to hear more, and I would keep an open mind to this because of the huge buffer and keeping your infrastructure and everything closer together. And there are other alternatives that might not be as good for the property. So I would definitely consider, letting you proceed with two proposals, a 10-year and a 15-year, to present to us in the not too distant future. So that's my view.
I would like to, I guess, add to, if I could, sir, to the board that the circumstances of the CCR, the floating zone, there is a uniqueness to the application of the floating zone legislation, and there is a minimum parcel size that the floating zone could apply to. All of this sort of adds up to the fact that this is very, very likely to be a very unique circumstance, and again, developed to solve a rather acrimonious problem. So that is something that I probably should have pointed out in my original presentation.
Yeah, you mentioned that during the presentation you gave to me. And I like that aspect of it, because we wouldn't want to open up the floodgates. But there are also fees involved to the IDA that could be amount to something substantial down the road as well. So that's another appetizing feature.
Yep.
Any other board member want to say anything?
Yeah, just make it. Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Go.
Knight, No. Go.
Okay. I'm very concerned as well. Looking more at Mary Ellen's train of thought, I would assume. We've never in the past thought of any residential housing whatsoever for pilots, but it's something I am willing to listen to. But I know other townships have floating zones and have more condensed housing, leaving more open space. I know a lot of them have it on the books already. Wallkill, that I was heavily involved with the last couple of years, has that in effect already. So it's very beneficial to the town, but also other places have done this. It's not something that's that unique. Maybe to Monroe it is, but not to other parts of the county. But I would be open-minded about it, but I'm not really that thrilled with this. I can tell you that.
I mean,
I think, Ed, I think that uniqueness comes into play, and this was directly from the Orange County Land Trust, that they've never done any type of deal like this, which would, permanently conserve land in conjunction with the development.
well,
Okay,
that's not,
Tony, I know.
They
I know
feel
other
it's going to be a
townships have it
model
coming.
for future developments in the state of New York, and that's coming directly from the Land Trust president.
well, I hear what you're saying, and Tony and I discussed this before, and I think, conceptually from a design aspect, there's a lot of interesting things and things that would be beneficial here, but that's not the issue for the IDA to discuss. The issue is do we want to give tax incentives to a for-profit developer for the development of housing? Now, certainly it's going to be in the conjunction with some settlement of some very difficult litigation that the town has been involved with for a very long period of time, and I can certainly appreciate, why, they really want to get this behind them and try to get the best developer possible. If we were to decide to go ahead and review the project, I mean, the one thing one beneficial thing that I think would happen, even though we don't get credit for them, is, any construction would be subject to the labor policies of the Orange County IDA, which would mean local labor would be required to build out that, and that's not inconsequential to our labor fellows and our construction folks. But again, and I said this to Mr. Cardone, and I say this to my fellow board members, the IDA is about the creation of jobs, and it's about the creation of permanent jobs. It's not about the creation of beautiful projects or effective lawsuit settlements. And I'm not convinced, and I haven't seen the numbers, but I'm not convinced that the pilot would necessarily be required in order to make this financially viable for a potential candidate. And that to me would be the tipping point. So if what your assumption is correct, and you're saying that the numbers are difficult for a potential investor, and the investors, they know what they want. They want a return on investment. They know how much money they want to make, and they know what they want their cash flows to be. So, and it's not a secret, and it's not rocket science. So, it would be easier to try to support something like that if that were to be factually present from my standpoint. But again, I feel that we'd be going down a slippery slope to be supporting, residential housing projects with tax incentives for a for-profit developer. And that's a philosophical point. And, and, again, it's supposed to be about jobs. So that's where I'm coming down.
I agree with.
Go ahead, Ed.
I said, that's what my concern is as well, Tony. We've talked about this a little bit as well. We know the precedent setting. What are we doing? What's our mission statement? So that's a concern of mine. So it's roughly about $30,000 per unit. If you say 500 units times 30,000 is 15 million. So in essence, to build this out, you got to figure in about $30,000 per unit for the lot, let's say, the lot cost of that. Am I correct in that assessment?
I would defer to Ryan on those numbers, because he's got them right in front of him.
Right, but I'm saying, Ryan, I figured it out kind of quickly. I believe it's about 30,000 a lot, or 30,000 a unit for land or whatever. That's what I'm figuring out. Is that about right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, in this type of development. Is that normal? Is that high? How do they figure the other projects when it comes to land cost and per unit cost of building it in? Because that's really what you have to do, is build it in per unit. What's the typical unit cost for the land purchasing of other big concepts like this? Can you give me examples?
Well, there's two ways, I guess, of looking at this. There's a regional market perspective, and then there's a specific evaluation of the Monroe market. And
okay.
Our analysis has looked at both. And from either perspective, the numbers necessary to make this project pencil are above market. Above market presently, and above market for projects comparable to this in regional areas that we looked at. They're not exceedingly above market, but they are in the order of about 12 to 15% above market. So I think one of the things that we're all, and maybe this comes into consideration for whether a pilot will be necessary. Back to the discussion about jobs. We're seeing people now actively considering where they want to live. And for many people, not only where they want to live, but where they will work from. And so one of the very unique aspects of this project is, by just pure serendipity, the timing of how this project is coming out, developers and ultimately residents will have the opportunity to live in Monroe and very likely work out of these houses. And I would be, I would expect that the development proposal that will be put forward for this this location will be very much focused on providing live-work environments that reflect the current reality. And so, unlike the standard bedroom community and commuter community that we would have seen a year ago, I think what you're going to see are more people buying and renting houses in this development who will be in Monroe essentially full time, eating lunch in Monroe as opposed to Manhattan and the surrounding area of the city. So I think this project will play differently. How that ultimately reflects in the market value is of course the question. And so we're sort of straddling those two realities. I do think this project will create jobs unlike other residential projects that we've seen in the past. I think it will support jobs, jobs in Monroe.
Yeah, but it won't. It unfortunately, the way our incentives are designed to incent companies that provide employment, not that provide additional benefits or the rollover benefits. So a residential apartment complex is not going to generate hundreds of jobs of people that are going to work every day, which is so you're comparing apples to oranges there. I mean, I agree. I think that you're going to see a big increase in the number of people who work from home, and a project like you guys are facing with is really in a good location for that. Depending on the size of the units and all those kinds of things, they probably would definitely attract that kind of person. I think that would be more likely to inure to higher rentals and better quality tenants, perhaps. But again, it's my job to represent the IDA, okay, and it's my job to represent the taxpayers of Orange County, and the taxpayers of Orange County, benefit when all communities benefit. So a rising tide lifts all boats, but it's disproportionate in this regard, and I do think that again, the precedent setting is troubling to me. And just, giving tax incentives to developers in general is troubling to me. So, Jim, you have anything to say?
Yeah, I think a lot of what's been said is there's validity to it. I'm probably 60-40 in the sense of what Mr. Brescia said in regards to at least looking at it a little further, just so we can get it through some kind of a review process. I don't think that predisposes any type of position that the IDA will take, other than, as part of our mission statement, we'll look at anything that will potentially benefit the county as a macro. And as we look at each community for certain projects, the micro. So it is something that we haven't done. But I don't think that as we go into the future, especially as we come out of, a post-COVID environment, as the IDA and as the stewards of the IDA currently, different revenue streams may have to be looked at, because I don't know how many more Legolands come into the picture if we get into another situation with another potential pandemic and things get shut down and things like that. We don't know what the taste for those type of projects will be. I think there is a little value on the micro level for the town of Monroe, because there is a potential, even if it's a small percentage, of helping those mom and pops in that particular community. And in the same time, if we attract folks to that area, the potential benefits for other parts of the county. I don't disagree that, we may be going down a road that we're not comfortable with, that we've never maybe looked into, but I don't personally, I'm one of those people that I'd like to hear everybody's story, and I'd like to at least listen to it and look at it. At the end of the day, it might not be anything we want to do, or it might not be, if it is something we do look at and we like, and there's some level of support, it might not be what the applicants are looking for. So, I'm not making any promises today. My only suggestion would be, for me personally, is that I would, like what Mr. Diana said and Mr. Brescia said, and I think the chairwoman said, to look at it a little bit further. If I'm misspeaking, please correct me, but I would just like to look at it a little further, at least so that we can get it through the rating portion of that we created at the beginning of, I think, last year. So that's just my personal opinion, because, things keep changing and we keep pivoting. And we have to look at other revenue sources to keep what we do, which is a great thing for the county. We keep doing it. So that's my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Madam Chairwoman, may I for a second?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Gatos first, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yes, I would tend to agree with Ms. Radulski. There's a lot of open doors that could possibly happen residentially. We've never ventured down that path, but and I think construction wise, even though we're in this situation we're in, I think we're going to get through it in construction, and things will come, and it may take a little bit, but things will get back. That's my opinion. But right now, the housing market, residentially, property up here in Orange County, if you put something on the market now, it's gone the next day, and it's a bidding war. So to see that this project couldn't sustain itself, I'd have to see that on paper. But I don't know, but I'm not a real estate person, but I know what's out there, my neighbor, what I hear, and, being on this board and being involved with my line of work. I would definitely hear more of this. And, if the project had more commercial stuff involved with it, where there was businesses and creating jobs, and it was some sort of different type of plant, but just strictly residential, and that would, I think, you do one, what size are we able to
Yeah.
Right.
differentiate from? There's a lot involved. So we'd have to legally, you asked the question legally, is it even approachable? Is there a lot more we need to hear? I'm open to hearing it too, but I don't know as if it's plausible.
Right. Well, I don't think, and I would like to ask Mr. Dowd and Russ to chime in here, because really what these guys are asking for is they're not asking for any commitment with a pilot, and which they can't in any event. But so they're just looking to have the ability, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but they're looking to have the ability to include in their RFP some kind of an indication that a potential tax incentive from the IDA may or may not be available for this particular project. Again, and you heard my knee-jerk reaction to that initially, and that's not to say that, if they wanted to make formal application, I think the pulse of the board is that we would be willing to look at a formal application, but we certainly can't give any kind of forward commitment statement or even a letter or something. So I'd just like to hear what you have to say, Russ. I mean, I don't think there is anything we can do, I guess is the question, is where I'm coming.
Yeah, this is Russ. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the simple answer from a legal standpoint is that this project would qualify should the board want to proceed for, the financial assistance that we provide projects, pilot, sales, and mortgage recording tax exemptions. As far as, the RFQ and having language in there or something in the RFQ that states that there were discussions, there are ongoing discussions with the IDA. I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't obligate us to do anything. Certainly nothing's going to happen today. And then ultimately, the developer, whoever that might be, have to put pen to paper and substantiate the need, and then it's at the board's discretion.
Okay.
Mary Ellen, you posed, I don't mean to jump over Mike McGinn, but I was going to ask that question you posed basically, but with workforce housing, which is highly fundable by the state of New York, probably even more so than senior housing now.
Yeah.
Has Harris Beach done projects somewhat tantamount, commensurate with this throughout the state?
Yes.
Those clients you have?
We have.
Okay.
We've worked with NDC many times across the state and frankly out of the state. And yes, the short answer is we've assisted IDAs in inducing these types of projects.
Okay, Mr. McGinn, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off before.
I cut him off. I'm sorry, Mike.
No worries. No worries. Just first of all, thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present and speak to you about this project. While I understand the central mission of the IDA is to create jobs, and we certainly need those in the county to keep it going, but if you create those jobs, you need somewhere for those people to live, and this development would provide people that opportunity to live in a setting that is unique to Orange County, and that is a combination of residential and forever preserved recreational, passive and regular recreational type of opportunities for them, as well as the rest of the residents in the town and the county. One of the things you always hear from elected officials, ourselves included, is we want to keep our youth in town. We don't want them having to go to the city or wherever they're going to go to work and then move out of the county. Well, this is something that gives them the opportunity. Our local, volunteer firefighters, ambulance people, police, teachers. It gives them an opportunity somewhere to live. That's to live and work here in Orange County, and it's something that's very, very much needed. Now, I know, again, is it creating jobs? There is definitely going to be a spin-off to not only the area, but just to everywhere else. These are going to bring in people that are going to go to the Warwick for the wineries. They're going to go up to Middletown to shop. This is something that is going to benefit the entire county. It's not just something that's good for us. I mean, listen, we've done the heavy lifting with the lawsuit end. We've got that under. We're not asking you to bail us out on that part. We've done that, but what we're just trying to do is get over that hurdle to get the best possible developer in here. And with NBC and this team that we've put together, Orange County Land Trust, it is unique, and it is, I can understand why people would be reluctant to maybe support it, but it's something that I think if you look at it in a global picture, it's something that's definitely needed and would benefit the county as a whole.
Okay, any other board member need to say anything?
I got a couple questions, and I would like.
Sure.
Yeah, I would keep an open mind to it, at least for review it or further. Okay, you got 491 units. You got 350 rental units. What is that estimated rental range, and what is the estimated range of the 150 or so houses you have built?
The distribution of for sale and rental units was an assumption of that flows out of the floating zone requirements and is represented in the DGIS. Between the two of them, the overlapping requirements and limitations, what the 491 units represent is the highest level of density given the floor area ratios for the number of bedrooms available. So I hate to say this, it represents, if you will, a worst case. That's what the environmental impact statement seeks to evaluate. What would be the maximum impact? And so that distribution between for sale and rental units is really the maximum number of rental units that would be allowable between the CCR and the DGIS.
Hey, Ryan, I think John was looking for a rental range price.
Price. Is it, $1,500 a month to $2,000, or is it,
I had a hard time hearing you. So the assumed rental rates on that are approximately on the market side $2.20 a square foot, and on the affordable $1.45 a square foot.
And average typical apartment, 2 bedrooms, is what, 1,400 or 1,000 square feet?
And it's about 1,800 to about 2,600 is what it works out to be.
Those are big apartments.
Yeah, and your 135 single family homes or condos, what range are they figuring that?
For the for sale price?
Yeah.
Between 500 and 600.
Yeah. Listen, for the sake of timing here, I think that, the questions that we're asking with respect to the rent and what have you, I mean, if we were to move ahead with an application, I would submit that would have to be part of it. So here's what I'd like to do, and if my fellow board members would concur. It sounds like the general consensus is that there's a willingness to allow an application process to move forward. Am I correct about that, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that being said, if there's a willingness to allow the application process to move forward, then I would say you go ahead and do that. You can represent that to, in the RFP or whatever. And then since Russ Genzel, our attorney, has no issue with, issuing some kind of a letter that says that we'd be willing to consider it. I don't know what that's going to do for you, but at least it's not a flat denial to any potential applicant. And, they could certainly make an application at the time, and we'll consider it based upon its merits. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, John, how about you?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we can do that, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Cardone. I hope that
Thank you.
helps you a little bit.
Thank
And
you very much. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
thank
that's
you.
all we were really looking for at this present time.
okay,
Thank you very
I'm sure, it sounds like it's really going to be a wonderful project just from a layout standpoint. And it's certainly innovative from a zoning standpoint, and there's a lot of really wonderful things about it. But, unfortunately, they're not necessarily the purview of the IDA. So good luck. And, and I guess we'll hopefully see an applicant sometime soon.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.
I think that's it for this meeting, correct? Anybody else have any comments or questions? Any new business? All right.
Motion to close.
All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, which I think I just, yeah, thank you. I need a second.
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 Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, so next up.